welcome to Weekly Infusion with Dr. Drew Pinsky and Dr. Bruce Heischober. Weekly Infusion addresses medically related topics. It's in the know, entertaining, and everything you want to know about health and medicine. Now, may I present to you the very wonderful Dr. Drew and Dr. Bruce.
And here we are. Bruce, how are you?
Good to be here.
Weekly Infusion, very exciting today. We're also on Facebook right now, Facebook Live. If you want to be a part of this conversation, we'll be at 323-649-8268. Anything new going on with you?
More time in the ER.
Yeah.
And opiate epidemic, working addiction medicine, more and more patients with opiate problems.
Yeah. Are we seeing them more willing to come in for treatment? Or are they seeing the diminishment in the prescribing practices or anything?
I'd say the most substantial change I'm seeing is less people approaching me in the emergency room looking for opiates.
With specific, I need Dilaudid, Norco, whatever.
Right, less expectation and understanding that, new guidelines saying MOAT, with non-steroidals being first line, using them more for acute injury. So I think there's a move in the right direction, but I think treatment needs to be, as we've talked about, I think there needs to be more realistic treatment, not just throwing Suboxone at people,
yes,
et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. Well, we're going to talk about something different today. We're going to talk about law enforcement and victimization. I'm doing a special with Elizabeth Smart.
Exciting.
Yeah. The documentary, which was her autobiography, was last week, and it will be airing again next week when you're hearing this. But I will also be doing Elizabeth Smart Questions Answered, which is I think it's a 1 or 2 hour interview I do with them. I don't know how long it's going to actually be. It's at 10 o'clock on A&E. Check your local listings as well. I go to aetv.com. And it's on November 20th, Monday. The documentary will air before and after that special as well. I spent a couple hours talking to she and her father, and it was very interesting just hearing what she went through. It's breathtaking, this documentary. It's unbelievable.
And she's a very intelligent spokesperson for that whole.
Very intelligent, pretty well put together. Yeah. Been through a lot, and just is able to live her life remarkably well. And
yeah.
And his, it's funny. There are a couple things. I wrote an article. I think we'll put it up on Dr.com eventually. About some of the things that were surprising that I learned talking to her. And one thing was, to a large extent, a lot of the story was about, I don't know how else to describe it, as being a woman in an awful situation, in that one of her captors was a woman, and the fact that that woman who has mothered 6 children couldn't come to the rescue of a 14-year-old was deeply incensing to her. And she also is very upset how women tend to take responsibility for things that happen to them. In other words, my friend Lauren Sivan, who was one of Harvey Weinstein's victims,
yes.
She said when he started doing his thing and she froze there, she said first thing after she froze was, first of all, what's going on? I don't understand this. Secondly, how did I get here? What did I do? What did I do? How did I get? Women always start this inventory of what did I do to get myself in this situation, even if it was completely random. To that topic, we have Steve Kardian in here. He's written a new book called The New Superpower for Women. Steve, that's a good way to get into this, isn't it?
Yes, sir, Dr. Drew, it is. Thank you.
So tell us, what are we going to learn on the new superpower?
Well, one of the most important things that I try to do with women is put them in touch with the gift of intuition. I have a network of hundreds of instructors across the country and around the world. And I wrote the book so that they would have an encyclopedia safety to go to, and that every parent could buy this book, read this book, and then pass it down with the knowledge that's in it to their college age or high school age daughter.
And when you say intuition, what specifically are you asking women to tune into?
Well, intuition is knowing something without knowing why. My first experience with intuition was when I was 17 years old, walking on a beach. Long story short, I was going to walk 15 minutes away at the 5-minute point. I turned around, I came back. I ended up saving a young child's life who was buried in the sand when 20 adults that live in vacation at the beach didn't even respond to my request. Does anybody know mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, rescue breathing? And I've experienced it over and over and over in intuition. And what I found in the cases that I've investigated with crimes against a woman is that in most all of the cases where a woman was face-to-face with some sort of a predator, that beforehand she had that feeling something's not right. Whether it was a woman on a date and she was raped while on that date, or it was a crime against a person for robbery or some sort of a scam, she had that feeling. However, many of them disregarded it.
And do you have any questions, Bruce? Because this topic fascinates me.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you about women versus men and the whole intuitive aspect of personality. And is there any science behind women having more intuition or men? Or I know this is specifically about women we're talking about.
But we'll talk about men too. Go ahead.
Well, if you look at the statistical data, Dr. Bruce, it would say that it's about equal. I believe that in every society, men are more violent than women. Therefore, women have that greater gift. However, they're also more apt to put it aside. I do a lot with the media. I work with Inside Edition's investigative unit, and I went onto a college campus, and I got 8 women in a row to invite me in their car under a roof to see how trusting they were on camera. And all 8 got me in their car and drove off with me in less than 30 seconds. So they have the greater gift. However, they're more often to put it aside.
I wonder what the adaptive advantage was, the putting aside part. That's the part I get why they have more intuition, because it's about child rearing and about protecting themselves and things, but why they would discount it. Maybe that's a cultural thing in today's world.
Well, how are they're grown up. They're raised to be nice and polite and proper and give people a chance and don't be judgmental. So that's a part of it. That's a part of it. And some of it too is, we have the vagus nerve running through our body, and that reaches out to every organ, and it's a two-way communication. That's where you'll get that sense of foreboding, that tickle in your belly, that tinge in your chest, or the hair on the back of your neck going up. Everybody has it differently. And we find through our research that if you're not paying attention, if you're not employing situational awareness, if you're not scanning your environment, you're less likely to pick up on something within your environment that may be a threat.
I don't know if you came to this about the vagus nerve on your own, or if you're quoting Stephen Porges' work, who's something we've done a couple times on this show. You talking about Stephen Porges and all his vagal nerve work, the vagal theory?
No, just in my research. I'm not even sure who he is.
You need to know Stephen Porges. He's the guy that really developed this whole science.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Stephen Porges?
Porges, Porges.
All right.
And that's what I'm constantly pushing on. Like, how does that part of our nervous system that's not our central nervous system, that's peripheral and autonomic, how does it pick this stuff up? It's so interesting to me, because you're right. The 80% of the vagus nerve is afferent. It's coming back to our brain, which we were not taught in medical school.
No.
We didn't get any information about that. And there are actually 3 or 4 different vagal nerves. Some are myelinated, some are unmyelinated, some are above the diaphragm, some are below the diaphragm. And how these things interact to give us our intuition, it's what you call a gut feeling. Literally, the vagus is picking up something from your gut. I wish I could understand what. Do you have any theory about that?
Well, life experience plays a part of it. I'm very sensitive to it. If I go to a crime scene, like the jogger in Queens, the young girl that went jogging and was murdered in Queens, I went there to do a segment with another media outlet, and I felt this overwhelming sense of sad. And women are way more in tune to that feeling. If you believe a guy's a creep, he is. If you feel like you're going into a dangerous situation, you are. And the more that I can profess to them to listen to that feeling, stop for a minute. How do I feel about this person? How do I feel about walking into this situation? How do I feel right now? I'm walking down the street. I'm thinking about taking a shortcut. How does my body feel? And, we could do it through meditation. We could do it through sitting and being quiet. We could do it through doodling. I don't mean meditation. So you could just sit there quietly. Every morning I get up at 5:30 and I go out onto my deck and I sit and I listen and I take in the environment. Now it's dark at, 5:30 still. So it's interesting that my sound has to play so much, my hearing has to play so much part of that.
And so you mentioned earlier it's constantly scanning. Tell us how somebody – I mean, it's a hard thing to discipline ourselves to do all the time, right? Or is it scanning the environment, or is it scanning our body to make sure we pick up on when something hits us in the gut or the chest?
You're scanning your environment. So when I tell women, when you walk into a building, just look to the left, look to the right. See if something pops out at you. We have a baseline. The baseline in New York City is different than a small suburb in Tennessee, and different from being at the beach or being at the park. And your subconscious can pick up on these abnormalities, something that looks out of place. When you walk out of a building, scan. I tell people, be sure you know where your exits are, and make sure that you create a blueprint, have a plan of action for something that would happen in the event, and you'd be prepared for it.
What about the predators or the perpetrators? They're acting pretty quickly. What can you tell us about them and how to sort of notice them?
Well, the Greystone Stein study in 1981, they did a study where they put a video recorder out on a busy Manhattan street between X amount of hours, and they took this footage that they had done for weeks at a time, and they brought it to predators in a prison in New York State, and they, independent of themselves, they asked each prisoner, murderers, rapists, killers, pick out on a scale of the soft targets versus the hard targets. And they all picked the same people. And they let petite people, men and women, go by. They let elderly men and women go by. And what these researchers discovered was that the predator was sizing them up, just like we do. In law enforcement, I've got to make a thin slice, split-second decision on somebody. It can make the difference between me getting hurt or getting killed, or a prisoner escaping, or somebody else getting hurt. So they judge these people by their stride, their gait, their posture, the way the correspondence between their hands and their legs were. And they all picked the same people. So it tells a lot about that. What your mom told you and your dad: walk assertively, walk with a purpose, head up, chin, chest forward, look bigger than you are, act like, you're proud, and project that energy that you're not one to be messed with, that you are a hard target. By not paying attention. 70% of the predator's game is the element of surprise. And if we take that away from him by being able to scan and pick up his presence, we have removed a large part of what he relies upon.
Now, how many of those women have a history of abuse as children, or previous rape, or
domestic
violence? Because it seems like once, I know in addiction medicine, women that have had sexual abuse when they were younger are more at risk, et cetera, and they carry a certain behavior pattern with them. And I think, is that what some of these guys are picking up on, some of the predators? And do you deal differently with those women in your courses, or is that not something you address?
Oh, absolutely. I deal with them differently in terms of accepting them to the class. I mean, if they're in therapy, I want to know where they are and have they discussed it with their therapist. But we do see women who have been offended or violated earlier in their life, that they are then again reoffended. And I think you see that in your research. We see it in the military. We see it with girls that were sexually assaulted in high school and going off to college. But anybody can be selected as a target for the victimization of a predator.
Have you tried to observe what those qualities are? Have you looked carefully at the childhood sexual abuse survivors and tried to sense what that guys might be seeing?
No. What specifically are you thinking?
I don't know. I sometimes they project a provocativeness that I could see how somebody could think about that as as somehow evocative. Like they have no idea they're doing it, but I could see how somebody could misread that, and they have no idea they're doing it at all. And there's also a kind of a weird, I don't want to call it receptivity. There's a relaxation where there shouldn't be, kind of thing. Like when you're examining them stuff, it's like no, just sit there. Just this shouldn't be. You almost feel like you're re-traumatizing them just by going through an exam.
Right.
And certain muscle groups start relaxing. It's like
Right. I look. It's sort of like the Axis 2 feel with a patient, whether borderline or somebody that's histrionic or dependent personality disorder, those kind of traits. But I think that does set you up for this type of.
Be more specific. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think just like the picture of somebody having abuse when they're younger.
Because that predisposes to personality disorders of various types.
Exactly. And I think that's part of what predators pick up on. What we're picking up on, we pick it up on it from a helper, healer.
Yeah. No, I'm picking up on very specific, tiny behaviors and things. They're looking for an overall something, maybe, right?
Right. But are some of the cues the same that we pick up as unhealthy, and we want to help them because this is what contributes to being a victim and substance abuse,
right.
and the predator? This is what I want. But it's an instantaneous thing.
Interesting. Do you agree, Steve?
Oh, sure, absolutely. When you say unhealthy, both mentally and physically, or when you use the word wounded, I mean, what does the predator in the wild? The cheetah doesn't go after the quickest or strongest gazelle; it goes after the slowest and the weakest. So, for sure.
What do the victimizers say they're looking for? What do they articulate, or do they?
They're looking for what we refer to as a soft target. That's someone who's not paying attention. For example, when I selected going beyond the college roots, I've got 21 out of 21 in social experiments with Inside Edition, where I select that target. And how did I do that? I looked for the girls that were on their cell phones. I looked for the girls that were texting. I looked for the girls that were eating their lunch, reading their notes, coming out and saying, "Oh man, it's a beautiful day. I'm out of here." The girls, women that walked out of that institution and just looked around, maybe they saw me, maybe they didn't, I let them go because I knew that they would be a much harder target. So preoccupation, not paying attention to your surroundings, not walking, with a purpose. Keep your head on a level. If you see somebody that's a threat, a lot of people, if they see a threat off to the left, they look down or they look away. Practice in the mirror, practice with your friends. You're walking by them. We do these exercises in class. You're walking by them, you keep your head on a level and then just give them a little glance backwards once you pass them, just to put them on notice that that they're up to no good and that if they do something, you're prepared.
I've wondered the way sexuality is projected in media, entertainment, and when young women see this and start to emulate some of the dress and the behaviors, do you think that's created more risk for women in society? Because clearly sexuality is flaunted like at no other time, at least the way I see it.
Well, as a man, as a woman's empowerment instructor, it's hard for me to suggest to a woman how to dress. But I will tell them it's better if a woman tells another woman how to dress. But I do tell them that if they dress a certain way, if they project a certain posture about themselves or maybe a personality, that they could attract unwanted attention, which could cause them some significant problems.
Right, and and he's not telling them how they ought to dress. He's just saying, "Here's what."
I don't never tell a woman that a woman should be able to dress any way that she wants and go any place that she should. But also recognize, that there's certain behavior going into nightclubs by yourself, accepting a drink from a stranger. That's high risk behavior. If you engage in that high risk behavior where you're taking a risk,
right?
Like the first 3-4 months of freshman year college is the most dangerous time in a young female's life. Now, it's not conceivable, but if it were to happen that they didn't drink during that time period, sexual assaults would go down dramatically.
Yeah, I watch TMZ and I see the people coming out of the clubs and they're all provocatively dressed, but the famous people have the bodyguards.
Right.
The other people. What about college campuses with all the frat?
What he was saying, the alcohol. I mean, alcohol's always present,
That's
except you're not allowed to call it as part of the problem. It's part of the problem.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
It's a huge part of the problem. Most sexual assaults that we see perpetrated, both individuals have been drinking, and you don't really learn this in science class, but our tolerance as adults, at a 0.40 blood alcohol, which 0.10 used to be DWI, amplify that by 4, would kill us. It would shut the medulla down, and it would prevent, our bodies would forget to breathe and our heart rate and so on and so forth. At a young person that has little to no experience with alcohol, it could be half that. And I've lost high school and college age kids to at about a 0.20, which would be for I don't think I've ever been a 0.20, but it would probably be about a dozen beers or so.
In reading your bio, I see that you have done stuff on college campuses.
Yes.
How does that? Do you ever get any flack? Is there any accusations of being sexist since you're just addressing women, or is that not an issue?
No. I worked for Campus Speak for 5 years. I traveled the country lecturing on sexual assault prevention, dating, violence, spring break issues, and it was well received. After I did a lecture, I had a line of people that wanted to share their story with me. Now, the social experiments are done. They've been done on college campus. They've been done in the Manhattan nightclub scene, where I actually got 5 women in an hour on hidden camera to accept a drink and drink that drink with me on hidden camera under the presumption it contains GHB or gamma hydroxybutyrate. But no, the perception is not. I'm so in tuned that some of my female students call me Steve's one of the girls.
Well, all I know is that I had a conversation with one of the big leaders on sexual assault on college campus, and when I dared to suggest alcohol had anything to do with it, she became enraged. And I said, "Do we want to solve the problem or don't we?" Don't.
No, it's a big. We'd be lying to ourselves.
Student leader?
No, adult, academic.
It's a neurotoxin, and it takes your ability to deal both mentally and physically. If you choose to fight back, it suppresses.
It's part of the problem. If we want to solve the problem, we're going to work on the problem. Either you want to solve the problem or you don't. All right, Steve. I'm not sure I got to yet. What is the new superpower? Is there one superpower that you're advocating?
The new superpower for women is, with regard to your intuition, you trust your intuition, predict dangerous situations, and defend yourself from the unthinkable. So it's a variety of things. It's me trying to put you in touch with your intuition, telling you what the predator's looking for in a target. And one of the most important things that I can ask anybody to do, even in law enforcement, I use this, is to create a blueprint for a plan of action. Now, in law enforcement, we call it visualization. In the military, they call it emergency conditioning, where you'll sit down, you'll think of a problem. Somebody's breaking into your home, and I'll go up to these young women, and I'll get right on top of them and say, somebody's breaking into your dorm right now. They're coming through the door. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I want to increase that adrenal response. And they're like, I don't know, because they don't have a plan for it. When bad things happen, that's not a time to create a plan. So if you think what would I do if somebody's breaking into my dorm? You go into a designated safe room, a bathroom, lock the doors. If you have a security bar to stop the door and make it even stronger, you do that. You make sure you visually see yourself grabbing your cell phone and bringing it with you. And you see yourself dialing, having that in your favorites, your campus police department, your local police department, dialing up and say, my name is Mary Smith. I live at 123 Main Street at the corner of Park Avenue. Someone's breaking into my apartment. Please send the police right now. And then they will tell you what to do. But if you don't think about that before it happens and you get that spike in your adrenaline, I've seen women not be able to dial 911 when their children were having grand mal seizures.
Yeah, we lose our fine motor coordination first thing.
Yeah. At about 115 beats, we lose our fine motor skills. Yeah. And that could be a woman sticking her key into her car to unlock it. It could be a woman sticking her key into a door to unlock her apartment. And when you lose those fine motor skills, it's okay. It's the breakdown. Upwards of we're talking about the fine motor skills between 115 and 145, upwards towards 145, your complex motor skills break down.
You're talking about your heart rate?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's your beats per minute.
Yeah. Upwards
towards 145. Your complex motor skills. Those are skills that we see in a lot of karate schools. The skills that I teach, they're gross motor skills. They thrive between 145 and 175.
Give us an example. Give an example of that.
Well, we actually, when we teach our women's program, we put women in positions that they would find themselves in if they were being kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and domestically violated. So it makes it not brand new. They've been there, they've done that. So they're better able to control their adrenal response. So God forbid a stranger takes a woman, throws her down, straddles her hips, or gets in between her knees. A woman goes into that panic mode. She goes and has this adrenal surge. And that adrenal surge lasts a very short period of time. It could be 20 seconds. It could be 40 seconds. It could be 60 seconds. But once she exhausts that adrenaline, she experiences the adrenal dump. So the better we're able to control that adrenal response, the better able we're going to be able to fight back and logically think about how can I unwind or back out of the situation.
And you said you teach gross motor skills. Give an example of one.
For example, using your trunk muscles, using the ground as your base, the reality of what would happen in a sexual assault. Take that same situation. If a man was already in between a woman's knees and rape would be imminent, she would base on his chest. She can't move him, so she slides herself out. Her feet go into the hips. She grabs his wrists and she kicks right down the center line. It's called an up kick. And it's actually illegal in the UFC. It's like a Larry Holmes uppercut, kicking up to down. This is your knockout area right here. And a woman with the ground as her base, using her trunk muscles, bringing her strengths to a man's weaknesses, kicks along his center line. She can hurt somebody 2 and 3 times her size. I've been knocked out by 90-pound girls wearing a protective suit.
So I would assume things like mace and tasers are, unless you do the basic work you're teaching first, those can actually compromise somebody. They have a false sense of security because they have this weapon or whatever.
Well, sometimes they may do something they might not ordinarily do. They may take a short stop or a shortcut. I don't care what you carry, but whatever you carry, you practice with it. I'm a big proponent of pepper spray. I actually use this. I don't make any money. I don't do, but I carry the Dad Tiger Light, and I like it because it wraps around your hand. It has a GPS signal that's sent to your contacts. It also has a flashlight, and it has military grade pepper spray. I carry one in my car in my sun visor. As retired law enforcement, I carry a weapon 24/7, but deadly physical force is not always the answer to every solution. So I've carried pepper spray. I've used it in the field. I've been sprayed a number of times. I know how effective it can be, especially when it's used with the element of surprise.
Let's go out to a call here. I don't quite have...
Hello?
Hi, what's your name?
Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. What's going on?
Well, I'm a lifetime agoraphobic. I'm 55 years old. I'm listening to this being aware. I understand about being aware of your surroundings. But there comes a point when they basically when you just want to stay home.
Well, but at that point, you're just staying home. Now you've got. She said she gave it a name, and she was right, agoraphobia, or agoraphobia, and that's now a medical problem. So you can go from being hypervigilant, hyper-aware, hyper concerned to actually driving yourself into an anxiety disorder. Yes?
Yeah. Did you have a bad experience that contributed to that, or that accentuated the agoraphobia?
Yes. Somebody tried to abduct me when I was 3.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So trauma also. Have you had trauma therapies?
Yes.
What kind?
Talk therapy.
Okay, that's not trauma therapy. So you need to get back.
Oh, sorry.
Well, that's fine, but you need.
Okay, remember this.
Oh, jeez, this phone. Go ahead. Remember what?
I'm sorry. It happened 52 years ago, so I mean, it's pretty much part of who I am now.
I understand, but trauma therapy can be done tomorrow, and that is sort of rewiring your brain a little bit with things like EMDR and those sorts of things. So,
Which takes time.
12
to 18 months usually to rewire something.
And somebody needs to really know what they're doing with it. And it's not about reliving this trauma or revivifying the feelings associated with it. It's just about changing how your brain manages it. That's the way I think about it.
But sympathizing with where you're at, I mean,
that's rough. That is some rough stuff. But that's a little different than what you're talking about, though, Steve, right?
Yeah, Dr. Drew, I have professionals that I go to. I never go beyond my profession. So something like that, I would definitely I would make a referral to someone in the behavioral field.
Agreed. Well, Steve, I appreciate you being here with us. It's very interesting. The book is called The Superpower for Women. I'm very interested in autonomic sort of responses and how the body responds to it, that kind of thing. It's to me, that's so many different things.
So many people in treatment fields are ignorant of the whole vagal theory.
I know.
So that's
Well, the
good stuff.
pepper spray that I mentioned, Dr. Drew, it's wrapped around your hand. So if you were blitzed or you were frightened, if somebody jumped you, and you have that autonomic response, like you mentioned, your hands would open, that it's still with you. So you get a second chance at it. And there's a lot of things that our body does naturally, especially if we haven't been exposed to a particular stimulus.
Show us that thing again. I want to see it. Is it like
this is the Tiger Light Dad.
It's like
it's got a flashlight that once you do this, for the pepper spray, and you depress the pepper spray, it sends a GPS alert out to all of your contacts.
Wow.
It says Steve Kardian is in danger, and it gives your exact location so that you can take some sort of action, and it's immediate.
Is it legal in all 50 states?
What? You want that?
It's legal in all 50 states. There are some states that will not allow you to say order it online, but this pepper spray is legal in all 50 states.
Great.
Give us the name one more time. It's something Dad.
Tiger.
It's the Dad Tiger Light. The Dad Tiger Light, and the beauty of it is I was looking for something that was a flashlight, pepper spray. It's also can be a blunt object, striker,
nice.
And it is a GPS locator. So the minute you depress the pepper spray, you're going to send a signal out to all of your contacts. They'll know that you're in trouble. They're going to try and get a hold of you. And, it's a case in which some of these crimes that we've seen where a young lady's out jogging, that it could have saved her life.
Very good.
Wow, that's great.
I want one of those. I've seen it on Instagram.
Oh, you've seen it on Instagram? Yeah, we need to get those.
Those are cool. Let's put them on the website.
Yeah, we'll put them up. All right, Steve, well, thank you so much. We're going to take a couple of emails, but I'm going to say goodbye to you, and I thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
My pleasure, Doc. Have a great weekend.
Oh, yeah. Go to Steve Kardian, Kardian, stevekardian.com. Also go to Jane Jitsu, not Jiu-Jitsu, Jane Jitsu, JaneJitsu.com. So stevekardian.com, janejitsu.com. Check those out. And thank you, Steve. Appreciate it very much. Go get the book. It's the new superpower for women.
Thanks, Dr. Drew. Thanks, Dr. Bruce. God bless.
Thank you, man. All right. I've got a couple of emails for you. Okay. This is somebody, Georgia. She's looking for EMDR. My mother was given probation. I grew up with her. When she wanted me to do something for her, she would emotionally blackmail me. I am not and have not been an addict, but have dabbled in drugs. I'm 58 and proud of the progress I've made. That's just somebody wants EMDR. Let's try this one. Reading about captivities. This is in relation to the Elizabeth Smart thing. I was held in captivity for 5 years. Age 12 and a half to 17 and a half. Unfortunately, it was written about in the New York Times in 2007 and Cosmopolitan. The New York Times printed, blah, blah, blah. Some of the statements were wrong. All the fact checks were not accurate. The book by Judith Herman, Trauma and Recovery, helped me understand a lot of my feelings after I was able to function. However, now I'm back to living in fear. So that's some sort of a relapse. Every life stressor, I don't know how she's saying this. Every life stressor has raped me of any resilience I have. I now live on clonidine, Librium, and cyproheptadine.
Huh.
I wonder why she'd be taking that. Pirin, she takes it for nightmares. Oh, that's interesting. It does have that. You can use it for like sleep terrors and things like that, cyproheptadine, strangely. I was a piece of meat. Now I am worse. Even I have to watch my ringtones. It stimulates me psychologically. I lose it. Although the only person that calls me is my husband. I don't know quite what she's asking for, except actually she may want to get involved with the Smart Foundation. Elizabeth Smart is trying to help women like this. They are, trying to hook people up with therapy and groups and things. Women support each other.
Did she say clonidine or clonidine?
Clonidine and Librium.
Yeah, so that's an interesting combination of meds. Maybe get a second opinion.
Yeah, but sometimes people use clonidine for agitation.
Oh, sure.
Or, stuff like
ADHD.
that. Yeah, it's QID, so they're using it for the sedating property. It's not the patch, which is less sedating.
I have addicts that want to continue after detox. They find it very useful.
For anxiety and stuff. Yeah, I don't mind that.
Yeah.
People doing that. In any event, again, it's all really about having support and trauma therapy and getting access to trauma
continuing
therapy.
the therapy, because some people feel that once they've addressed something and had improvement that they're done. So,
okay, here's somebody who has a question for you, Bruce, about the dressing issue. Of course, that has to come through. Hey, Carol, go ahead, Carol. Or Carol Ann. Do we have her?
Yes.
There you are. Go ahead.
You want some dressing advice?
No, go ahead. Go ahead there, Carol. Go ahead. You're on the air.
I just had a question for Dr. Bruce, because he seemed to be triggered on, unless I was taking it wrong, on the fact of how a female is dressing. Like that could be a trigger for a predator, is how the female's acting or dressing, instead of looking at why is someone a predator. Like he's blaming the female more.
No, Mr. Kardian said, I teach women about behavior that puts you at higher risk, so women can manage the risk on their own. That wasn't Bruce brought it up, but
okay.
Kardian's one that said that that's what he does. He teaches women, you can choose to do whatever you want, but in terms of minimizing risk, he has a whole list of things that increase your risk, and dress and whatnot are some of the things.
Oh, yeah. I know how Steve feels, and I know what he said, but I was just going by what Dr. Bruce was stating, so I just wanted to ask him about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I said sexuality, the way it's projected and promoted in media today, I think it is inappropriately provocative. I've worked with social workers that work with teenagers that feel that some of the videos and some of the entertainment material out there for young girls is so inappropriate you could almost construe it as sexual abuse. So blaming the woman for how she dresses is not what I'm implying, but I think that some of the dress is highly inappropriate. And I think when you have celebrities projecting some of these behaviors, when it translates to teenage girls emulating them, I don't think that's
well, I think what you said was if they're engaged in the behavior, they bring a bodyguard with them.
Yeah, right.
And the teenager can't have a bodyguard.
Yeah. So anyway, but
yeah, because a female should be able to dress any way that she wants to dress. It doesn't give a man any.
Hey, Carol Ann, we said that specifically twice when it was brought up the first time. I mean, that we all three of us articulated that. Why should we have to? We're trying to help save lives here. Why should we go back?
Yeah, that's fine. I just must have misunderstood it. That's all.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. I have no problem with your point, because we agree with it. We are 100% agreement, but we're trying to save lives, and to go back around about this can diminish the priorities. Sometimes I feel like, when teaching medical students and stuff like that, if they want to talk about pronouns, don't take care of the patient. Just take care of the patient.
Right.
It really offends me. I'm offended when we can't do the work to take care of the patient if all these other things get in the way of it about people's feelings. No. You're a physician. Go take care of the patient. Take care of the patient. That's it. Period. Right? Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
I just it really bothers me. We can worry about all the other stuff outside of the what you're supposed to focus on, which is saving that patient's life.
Right.
Don't worry about your feelings right now. In fact, you should learn how to focus on that patient even when you're feeling horrible. The more horrible, the better. Focus on the patient.
Right. I think she's coming from the place where there are men out there, and there's recently a book on male some hegemony and just how the male-dominated society projects certain authoritarian bad images, but I think she's reacting to there are men that blame women. Oh, well.
Yeah, we can't blame the victim.
And that's horrible.
Not.
So I'm sorry if I even projected a percentage of that type of viewpoint. I wasn't implying that.
So let's be 100% clear.
Right.
Rather than focusing on helping people not get hurt, we're going to state again, which we've stated multiple times, that blaming the victim never is something we would do under any circumstances.
Absolutely.
And if we somehow stumble over our language that give you the impression that we're making victims responsible for anything that happens, and of course that's nothing to do with us. Of course.
Yeah.
All right.
You gonna be okay?
I'm thinking of the students that bog down in that stuff, and when they need to be focusing on the patient and the care and the saving the life and their skills and those kinds of things. That's when I get violated. I'd rather be raped myself than have people who's responsible for saving people's lives worrying about things they shouldn't be worrying about. Worry about that later. Worry about the patients, making the patient better.
Yeah, I think in society today it's so polarized that there are things that you can say that sometimes people associate with certain viewpoints that are real negative. So.
Yeah, but know your allies and know who you need to school.
Right.
I don't think Dr. Bruce, the guy, needs to be schooled on this. Do you?
No.
The guy needs to be schooled on
No, but I understand it. I mean,
I understand it too, and it makes me upset to be even thought of in the same category with any of that.
Right. I try and be a buffer when I'm working in the ER. If I come into a shift and I don't have enough buffering energy, then sometimes you can react.
What do you mean buffering energy? What do you mean?
Well, some patients are unreasonable and they're angry, and I just have to. If I have if I get sleep and exercise and I come in, then I have to put myself in their place. And sometimes frustrations people have, or the sensitivity, like this individual, I don't know what her background is, I don't know what she's experienced, but she's represents a certain sensitivity to there are men out there that are. It's sort of a very subtle blaming of women.
It's not subtle sometimes.
Yeah,
it can be subtle or it can be explicit.
Yeah,
unacceptable.
Right,
we never would be. That's why we stated it.
Right, so we clarified that.
Yeah, and we'll clarify when we first brought it up. But
right.
Should we not have brought it up?
No.
That's the horrible thing, because some people will not bring it up because they're fearful of taking this heat.
Yeah.
You don't bring it up, somebody's going to die.
Yeah.
Not because they shouldn't be able to dress that way. They should be able to do whatever the hell they want. But somebody may put themselves at risk and not understand they're putting themselves at risk.
Well,
unless somebody teaches them how to manage risk.
I think it's part of what we're talking about. Sometimes when you work with I've worked with adolescents. So when you work with adolescent girls that have been victimized, sometimes they will dress provocatively.
That's part of the disorder.
Part of the disorder.
Yes.
And so I'm more coming from that viewpoint, and it's just like helping them to see what they're...
And if they still want to do it however they want to do it, that's fine, but...
Right. Sometimes they are reliving their being very... well, anyway, so I'm probably beating it.
Yes. All right. Anyway. So that'll about do it.
And then don't forget about Elizabeth Smart.
And don't forget about Elizabeth Smart. That is coming up November 20th.
It's tonight. It'll be...
It is tonight. If you're listening to this later in the week, it will have been earlier in the week, but it's November 20th. And it's at 10 o'clock on A&E. But you can find it right now at anetv.com. You can get all and check your local listings. But we appreciate you being a part of that.
Steve's book.
And again, Steve's book is The New Superpower for Women. Don't forget about that. Steve Kardian. SteveKardian.com. Also JaneJitsu.com. And excellent, Bruce.
Great. I want to get one of those Papa Tigers or Daddy Tigers or whatever those devices
I wrote
are.
it down, and now I've already lost it. But yes, I'm going to get one of those myself. So thank you all, and we'll see you next time. Well, one of the great parts about working in recovery is seeing former patients successfully move on. And I've had patients that have come up to me years later and shake my hand and say, you know what, sometimes people are kicked out of treatment. And many of these folks move on to become mental health professionals themselves. And, of course, the field of psychology is vast. The need for competent practitioners is huge. If you're considering this rewarding career, I urge you to consider the California School of Professional Psychology at Alliant University. Now, I've known them for a long time at Alliant University. I've spoken at their past events. It was founded in 1969. It's boasts an alumni network of nearly 50,000 people worldwide. And Alliant has fostered many of today's mental health pioneers, authors, and advocates. CSPP at Alliant University hosts both on-ground and online programs in business psychology, marriage and family therapy, clinical counseling. They also offer APA-accredited doctoral programs in clinical psychology that can allow for specialization in child psychology, clinical forensic psychology, and integrated psychology. And the faculty is crazy. It's made up of leaders and historical figures like Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, Viktor Frankl, some of the true fathers of modern psychology. For more information, and I worked alongside of these students as well, by the way, in the clinical setting, as well as having lectured at the institution. So for more on the California School of Professional Psychology, CSPP, at Alliant, click the Alliant banner on our website or visit Alliant, ALLIANT.edu, alliant.edu.
Remember, you can find all these podcasts at drdrew.com. The Dr. Drew podcast, the This Life podcast, and the Adam and Drew podcast, which is available 5 days a week. Find them all on iTunes and rate us 5 stars. Subscribe and get it first. And if you're really happy, click on the Amazon banner at drdrew.com to help support the show. We'll thank you for it. If you join the email list via drdrew.com/contact, we'll send you a weekly infusion newsletter with Dr. Drew's news. We're so grateful when you get in touch. We read all your emails and we'll bring you the subject matter you want to hear about.
You live.